Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of MMA, the great Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you feeling?
You know what? I could be, I could have like a fever. I could have broken bones. I could be like on a stretch on my way to the ER. And I feel pretty damn good after that win last night.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I mean,
congratulations to the Raiders, Raider Nation. Big
it's
one.
like a fighter that gets all beat up, but he wins. You know what? He don't feel a damn thing. He don't feel a damn thing the next day. And I'm, thank God my family's feeling better. We're getting over COVID and everything. And we've been over it. We're doing good. And, I always have my little situation with my back, and I know you're having a little situation. You're so stubborn. You went running when it's like 20 degrees out and you forget about something called black ice. And, you can't do that no more. You got to stop. That's what the treadmill's for. The treadmill is for when there's black ice, you go on the treadmill. You go on the treadmill. You go inside. You say, "Oh, the treadmill. I'll use it today." I know you're a maniac, and you got to run. And you
know what my first thought when I got up, when I finally peeled myself off the ground for the third time in the last week, I thought, "Oh my God, thank God I didn't break my hip." Can you imagine if I had to come on here and say, "Hey guys, I broke my hip"? Can you imagine the old man jokes I'd hear for the rest of my life? And I fell down so hard, I was like, "Oh, thank God I didn't break my hip."
No, thank God you're okay. Please use the treadmill when it's cold like that or something. Seriously, really, we don't want something to happen. You have a beautiful family, but we, I feel good because just win, baby. That saying that the great late Al Davis said was, you talk about being on a button. Just win. Just find a way to win. Find a way to win in life. And in the football and in baseball and in boxing, find a way. Find a way. Sometimes it doesn't come down to strategy, X's and O's, talent anymore, speed. Everybody's dead tired. It comes down, find a way. Find a way. Something inside you, find a way. Refuse to lose. Find a way. And the Raiders, for all their weaknesses, everyone's got weaknesses, but, for all the things that they obviously could be stronger in positions and this and that, they found a way. There's one thing that you can't put in there, that's heart. And they showed so much heart, so much grit. Really, congratulations to all of them. Congratulations to my son, Teddy. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for all of them. They worked so damn hard. Obviously, everyone works hard, but, these guys had a lot of things happen during this season, a lot of crazy things, a lot of tragic things happen during this season. And you know what? How do you get in this position? How? Find a way. Will will beat skill, quite often. Like the great Customato, to quote him or paraphrase his quote to me, was, Teddy, will always beat skill, unless one man's skill is so far superior that the other man's will never gets tested. Same thing in life, same thing in the team, whatever. And, when you get in the NFL, it's pretty comparable to talents out there. Some teams have more, no doubt about it, but it's fairly comparable. And then it comes down to execution, obviously, technique, teaching, coaching, that's all part of it. But nothing replaces will. And that was a great exhibition of that for people, that maybe things are going bad in their life and they've had some bad things. You had so many terrible things with this team. And what happens? They just kept banging away, not giving in. It's never over. Yogi Berra had that saying, Ken, it's not over till it's over. Yep. You know what that really is defined for me, what that means? It's not over till you say it's over.
That's right.
That's what it says to me. It's not over till you say it's over. You don't give a frig about what this one says, that one says, even what the statistics might say sometimes. It ain't over till you say it's over. And when you don't say it's over, well, you always got a shot.
You know what? You know what that makes me think of, Teddy? Alex Volkanovski when Brian Ortega had him in that guillotine, a mounted guillotine, and I was like, oh, it's over. And even Alex was like, yeah, I could see the light start to flicker, but he kept trying, and refused to believe it was over, and it wasn't.
And that's the magic. I mean, that's it. That's the one thing that machinery doesn't have. That the genius of human life. Really, the miracle of human life. You know, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in nature, whatever you believe in, but the miracle and the magic of human life, that it can find a way. It can do miraculous things. It can make things happen that aren't supposed to happen. How? Yeah. It's no longer. It's not on a physical realm anymore. It goes on a different realm. It's a mental realm, whatever you want to. But it's not on a physical realm. It's like you just said about Volkanovski, that he just refuses to submit, refuses to surrender, refuses to quit, and he finds a way out. He finds a way where it's becoming dark. He's floundering around. I found the light switch.
Yep.
The light's on. And that's what I just want to say, that, you know, for that moment where sports can lend itself, you know, to human condition, to human real life, where any of you guys out there, you know, going through some tough times, and I know that you are, and there's plenty of people, we all go through our difficult moments, you know, you can still find that light switch to get the light on. You know?
Yeah, the other thing that I thought about when you were talking about the Raiders is about all the teams are good, everyone's talented, and there's no better example of this. I was telling my kids, we were talking about what could happen in all the playoff scenarios, and they said the Indianapolis game flashed on the red zone, and I said, oh, Indianapolis is going to kill these guys. And look, and but I said to the kids, I said, oh, look, this is a close game. I said, anyone in the end, every single player in the NFL is good. Every team on any week can win a game. And Jacksonville had nothing to play for, and they beat the crap out of the Colts and kicked them right out of the playoffs. And the Colts have had that hard knocks with them in the season for the first time. And when I watched it, I thought, this is a really good team. These guys have a good chemistry. The coaches are into it. The players seem to be on board. To see them lose to a team that was as bad as Jacksonville all week, to get knocked out of the playoffs was... on one hand, it was heartbreaking. On the other hand, it was like, holy shit, you forget that every NFL team is stacked with the best players in their colleges. Every guy who plays in the NFL on Sunday was the best guy on every team he was ever on, 90% of them, unless they went to Alabama. It's crazy.
No, it is. So, Ken, I'll tell you something. You just touched on something, and it's like an axiom out there. You know, it's a cliche, whatever. But you hear it quite often. You just said it, where they had nothing to play for. See, that's where I would come into coaches, and I would come into these people that say that, whether it's coaching, whether it's teaching, whatever realm it is. And I would say, stop saying that. Stop saying that. Maybe we need to learn. How many centuries have to go by before we learn there's always something to play for? You're playing for yourself. So what if you're out in a column that tells you wins and losses? So what? That tells you going to the playoffs. You're not going to the playoffs. But what about that column about yourself, your self-identity, who you are, what you want to be able to be, what you want to be able to represent to your children, to yourself? You know, there never comes a time that there's nothing to play for. Hey, you're playing for your right to feel the way you want to feel. Like you count, like you matter, like you should be respected, that you shouldn't be a 20-point underdog, whatever. That there is always something that you're freaking playing for. Always. People should take note of that. It just hit me when you said that. I said, I got to jump on that, because that's one that has to be readjusted a little bit. Nothing to play for? No, there's always something. Find what it is. Find what it is.
I would say maybe that's like the cliche, nothing to play for. But I would, to
It
your
is.
point, my argument would be: you want to be on this team next year? You want to get paid $1 million to play football? You better get your ass out there and get after it. And they did. It was, I mean, they put it on them pretty good. It wasn't
Always
like
something to play for.
Yeah. Yep.
Always something to play for. Always something to live for.
Yep. Speaking of which, big game tonight for the guys at my bookie. Who do you like in the Alabama-Georgia game?
I like Georgia. I'll tell you.
I do too.
I know that they got, slapped around a little bit, but, to our point, the talents are comparable. I mean, nobody's got more talent than Alabama. They got the top recruiting class year after year after year after year. Georgia's right up there too. But it comes down to that but. It still has to be connected with the will. It's got to be connected with the emotion, with the desire, with that want. And I'm not saying, obviously, Alabama's been a national champion so many times, obviously, with Saban. He's broken a record, I believe. I think he broke Bear Bryant's record from Alabama, but with the most national titles or tied it, whatever. And there's no doubt about it. They're what your team, the New England Patriots, used to be. They're a dynasty. But they won the first game against Georgia. There was an urgency in the air. That was their playoff game. I mean, if they didn't win that, they don't get into playoffs.
Yep.
At that point. They already had one loss for the season. So they had to win that. They had that it factor. They had to win that game. It was more important to them than it was to Georgia at that moment. And now that's gone. Now here they are, the number one team. And Georgia is obviously there. And, yeah, they got spanked by Alabama some weeks ago. But there's something different in the air. There's that want. There's that urgency. That urgency that this is it. I know this sounds crazy, but they could afford to lose that first time. I know you try not to let that creep in there. But guess what? I said it earlier. We're not machines. We're human. And it creeps in there. I think now it's going to be different. It'll be a hell of a game probably. But I favor Georgia. Again, the talent's comparable. Alabama has a little bit better probably. But now comes the other things. The desire, the will.
You know what it reminds me of? When you were just talking about the first time they played, it reminds me of the time the Patriots had a perfect season. They beat the Giants at the last game of the regular season, and then they lost to them in the Super Bowl. In hindsight, you would have given anything to lose that regular season game but win the Super Bowl. And Brady has said, I'd give back multiple Super Bowls to get that Giants loss back, that perfect season. That was that was the most painful loss I've ever been a part of that I've ever experienced that I wasn't on the team. I was pissed. I was inconsolable for a couple days. I was like, God, I'm so angry. And
if they don't beat the Giants in that last regular season game, they don't beat them if they lose it. You just touched on. If they lose that game, probably beat them.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean. Again, these are the mystical things. These are the intangibles. These are the nuances. These are those things that you can't quantify. We can quantify speed with the stopwatch. We can quantify power and strength, how many bench presses they can lift, what weight, all that stuff, the explosiveness. But you can't quantify that stuff. And that's what I would be betting on tonight, that stuff with Georgia over obviously a tremendous Alabama team. Let's talk some fight stuff. We got some good fights coming up. I mean, we got some good MMA fights or UFC fights coming up. That's for sure.
For sure. Actually, before we get into the MMA, we hadn't discussed this, but I just saw Mike Coppinger sent out a tweet that said the Canelo cruiserweight fight may not be finalized and that he may actually slip into a Charlo fight on Cinco de Mayo. That would be a hell of a lot more interesting to me than him fighting a random cruiserweight champion. The cruiserweight thing's interesting, but not as much as the Charlo fight.
No, Ali said it. He said, your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. And, for me, a guy like Canelo, people will say, oh, he's moving up to cruiserweight. There's danger there. There's no danger if these guys can't hit you. and I don't see these cruiserweights. I mean, Usyk would have been a different story, but he's not there. Now the guys that are there,
no, he is not. He's not beating Usyk. I don't care what anyone says. Like that's, that's
a different story. But now with the cruiserweights that you can pick from, you can get guys that are cement-footed. You can get guys that are one punch at a time. You can get guys that might have some strength, but they're not. They're going to be at a disadvantage with a well-rounded guy and a quicker guy and a smaller, more fleet guy like Canelo. I mean, the history of boxing tells you that smaller guys, you go back in the sport 200 years, whatever, smaller guys have beaten bigger guys. There's a reason for it. Because they were quicker, they were smarter, they were, more sophisticated in certain areas, more agile. The bigger guy couldn't use what his strength was, which was maybe power. But the smaller guy could use their strengths, which was speed and finesse and agility. So elusiveness. So for me, I agree with you. I'd be more interested in seeing him fight Charlo, even though I think he wins the fight. But I'd rather see that because Charlo's a step up at least, from the Billy Joe Saunders and from the Plants. He's a step up from them. And so if you were trying to build a case, and God knows people were trying to build a case that those guys had a chance, even though I say I'm not right all the time, but on this show I said, no chance. No chance, no chance. Some people got mad at me. But, I still, in this case, there's more of an argument to be made for the chance of him fighting
Charlo?
Yeah, the Charlo. And there's more of an argument to at least make a case for that than the Billy Joe Saunders and the player because he's got more talent. And again, I obviously I think it would favor Canelo, and Canelo, of course, has the ability to navigate and make the choices of who he's fighting, where other guys just hope that they're on the list so they can get paid more. That's what's happening right now. No different than years ago in this sport when Ali was champion. If you fought Ali, you got paid more because Ali was that guy. No different than when Tyson was the man, and you got paid more than you normally would get paid for a title fight because you were fighting Tyson. Same thing now. If you fight Charlo, you hit the jackpot.
Yeah, if you fight Canelo.
Canelo. If you fight Canelo, you hit the jackpot. So
yeah, I think Caleb Plant got $10 million to fight him.
Yeah, I mean,
$10 million.
But it's been that way in the history of boxing. If you retrace, there's always the guy that is the guy that you can make more money than normal with. And right now the guy is Charlo. Unless you're talking about the heavyweights where you go up and then maybe you're going to go to London and you fight, even though Joshua kind of put himself out, but you're never out because, fans are fickle. Promoters don't care. They still find a way to make the money. And even though he lost to Usyk, if you got Joshua with that great following over in the United Kingdom and you put him in Wembley Stadium again, whether it was with Usyk or you somehow could come back around like musical chairs, and it could wind up being, Fury, which is what they were hoping for, but it didn't happen. Of course, Usyk was the fly in the ointment for that one, but that would still be, forget about it. You'd still, Joshua and Fury would still be astronomical numbers.
But never mind Wembley, Teddy. They got the Saudis are willing to pay $150 million site fee. There's a lot of you'll spend a lot of money to whitewash the fact that you murdered a Washington Post journalist in your embassy in Turkey. So that, how much would that cost to a country that's got a GDP of like trillions of dollars, whatever it is, to spend $100 million to like get some good press to kind of deviate from murdering journalists.
No, it's awful.
You're
right. No, that's it. That amounts to tip money. Like you tip in one of the bellhops that you go into those fancy hotels where you go. That I see on those shows. They put them on those shows, the rich and famous, and those kind of shows.
You better give a big tip, or they'll get your luggage up there in like 2 days. It's like an extortion.
You better tip. I'll never forget. Remember that show? I don't know if you remember, but Beverly Hillbillies. It was a cute
Of course.
show,
that was a funny show.
And Granny and all that, and Jed. Jed of course became this millionaire, but he was still a hillbilly. He didn't know the etiquettes of that stuff. So they took him to the Beverly Hills, whatever hotel, fancy hotel, and he gets up there, and one of the people from the bank was with him. And I think it was the woman from the bank, Miss Hafferty or whatever her name was. And
Miss Hatfield.
And he opens up the door. The bellman opens the door, puts the bags down, and then he's standing there with his hand out. And so Jed says, "What is he doing?" And Miss whatever her name is says, "Well, he's looking for his tip." Oh, why didn't you say so? Plant your corn early this year. I know people like that. I know people that aren't hillbillies, and yet that's the kind of tip that they would like to give instead of some De Niro. But
the best advice I can give anyone when checking into a hotel is, as you're checking in, you give that person checking you in $20, and I guarantee you that the room that they're checking you into will all of a sudden be like the much better room than the one right outside the elevator, especially if you're asking them to check you in early or something to that. And the nicer the hotel, the bigger the tip. For $100, you might get upgraded to the only available like presidential suite because it's the only room left in the house, and they're like, "Oh, your room will be ready at 5, but I guess we can shoehorn you into the presidential suite since you gave me $100."
It's a universal law, and there's certain things that obviously you can count on, and that's one of them usually.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't realize that that's the person you want to tip when they're assigning your room, especially if you're spending a lot of money on a vacation. Even if you take a loss, if you're in a nice hotel for a week, to give them an extra $100 when the room's a few hundred a night or more, money well spent. If nothing else, you're like, "Hey, wink, wink, let everyone know that I'm here. Here's $100.
Hey, you give $100 to park your Ferrari, so I mean that's to you.
I'm in like a house out in the country. I'm in the house out in the country in Nashville now. I don't see any valets. I've been more likely to see a guy on a tractor.
How do you like Nashville? You like it?
I would say that the people here are a 10 out of 10. Honestly, everyone here is so kind, so nice. Everyone says hello when I'm running. Then I go to New York for something. I run in Central Park, and I, out of habit, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" As I run past them, and no one says hi. They look at you like you're crazy. But everyone here is very friendly. I like it here. It's different, but with the lockdown has made the adjustment period. Not the lockdown, but there's like a lot more limited activities going on with the COVID, especially with this Omicron. We've had it, you've had it. We've both been playing sick the last 2 weeks. But I would say overall, it's a much more, I think that the perception is that, oh, you're in Nashville or Florida or Texas, you're with the rednecks, the ignorant people. And I'm like, there's no more cases of COVID here than anywhere else. And you wouldn't know there's COVID here. No one has. There's people have masks within reason at the airport when you're in tight quarters, but not like you're outside. I can remember when it first started and I was running in LA and neighbors would walk by me with their mask on. This is outside, out in the mountains, in the trails. People are like, "Put your mask on." I'm like, I'm outside exercising. What are you talking about? I'm like by myself in a mountain trail. But no one, I think more in Nashville, more so than LA and New York, in my experience, people tend to like worry about their own business a little bit more and kind of allow people to do and express themselves the way they see fit without so much like in your face telling you how you should behave.
To me, the only ignorant people are the people that are so arrogant to call other people ignorant. I mean, there are cases, don't get me wrong, where people don't use proper judgment and don't allow themselves to find out something before they make a statement or find out more about it, the facts, before they make a statement. Or, just say something based on less than facts, based on emotion or based on anger. That can be labeled under the label of ignorance. But when I hear people say, "Oh, those people in that area are ignorant," that's an ignorant statement to say that, to cast that kind of shadow over a group of people. That to me is the exhibit A of what true ignorance really is. I'll finish up with this Charlo thing real quick. Yeah. I'd be interested what the weight would be for that fight if Charlo, if that does become the opponent in Cinco de Mayo for obviously for Canelo, because Canelo has put on so much muscle. If you haven't noticed, people out there, going up to light heavyweight, and then he was talking about cruiserweight. He's put on so much muscle. And don't even get me into whether it's got something to do with the beef that they serve in Mexico. All right, we're not even we're not gonna wink. We're not even gonna go there, right? Because I'm sure by now, with these $40 million paychecks, one after another, 50 million, whatever the hell they are, he's got to be eating Kobe. He's got to be eating Kobe beef, don't you think, Ken? By now. Like,
guys, come on.
I don't know.
If there wasn't some smoke there, you wouldn't even have heard about a failed drug test. It's like you failed the drug test and then all the excuses start flowing in. And if you need examples of that, you can look back at when Lance Armstrong failed the first drug test and somehow that got kind of brushed under the rug until the case really heated up when he got in trouble for the comeback in like, I don't remember the year. It's called 2012. They went back to the original cortisone incident where he got busted for that, and then they came up with a story. Oh, he had a saddle sore, and they rubbed some, cortisone on it, and it was like the story after the positive test. 9 times out of 10, it's like bullshit. Like, there's a failed drug test. Of course, you have a story. Very few people are like, "Oh, you got me. Damn it! I thought I could get away with that." It's like people would ask him, "Why didn't you just come clean quick?" Well, it's like a story as old as time. I tell my kids, "Don't start lying. Once you get lying, now the incident becomes huge. If you just acknowledge and take responsibility, you're caught." But very few people can just be like, "I'm stopping this right now. You got me. I did it. I know it's going to get worse." And then the cover up and then the lie. So this thing of the tainted meat, come on, man. Look at I don't want to get attacked by the Canelo lovers, but he's obviously tested positive.
There are haters out there that sometimes there's a little ignorance in that. But we're just pointing out some stuff that's pointable. That's 100%. That's pointable to point out, but nothing else. But boxing doesn't look into that stuff. We don't have anybody. We don't have any journalists out there. Any people out there, really true journalists. Very few. That are going to have interest in following this. And it's like nobody cares. It's like, it's boxing.
Not only that, Teddy, if you're the journalist who starts sniffing around and trying to convict Canelo of anything, what do you think the promoters and the other fighters and everyone's going to say to you when they could get I just told you, Caleb Plant got $10 million. I would venture to guess that his highest payday maybe been one or two.
That's why mum is the word, and that's why nobody cares. And they just say, that's boxing. What are you going to do?
Well, when you've got the most journalists at ESPN are in bed with a promoter, they're not going to come in, and not that Top Rank has anything to do with this, but my point is, if the writers work for ESPN and they're in partnership with a promoter and the promoter's fighter has an adverse finding, you think that the reporters are going to be egged on by management? Go get this story. No, if we get the story and sink this guy's battleship, like, we're out of the business. Like, we can't have our big marquee fighters with our promoter partner get busted for this. Like, this isn't what we're looking for.
Of course. No, obviously. And listen, getting back to what I was, talking about is that I'd be interested in what the weight is, because I don't know if Canelo could safely go down to 160. I guess it depends on how much time he has, but down to 160 so easily right now after putting all that muscle on, no matter how he put the damn stuff on. But he's obviously on a weight program, so that's I understand, that's cool. But he's obviously put on quite a bit of muscle. And, what weight class could he comfortably fight at now? But you change a couple things. You change some dietary things and your weight program and whatever else. Obviously, you can be flexible to get to different weights. But that would be part of my question would be that.
Yeah, I wonder if I can't imagine Canelo having all the power here to negotiate. I can't imagine he'd go down to 160 after going up to almost 175. I think he gets him to come up to 68.
Yeah, and listen, Charlo or anybody else is we just talked about. He's the golden goose, and where you might make X, you normally with somebody you're making Y when you're fighting Canelo. So obviously they go up in weight because that's where they get the payday.
I mean, when you think about it, he's got a built-in excuse if he did go up and lose. He's like, well, it's not my natural weight. He took advantage of me, but I got the paycheck.
Of course.
Well, speaking of all the money in the cash cow, there's one guy who is in the driver's seat right now to potentially be one of the highest paid athletes in the world, and that's the great Francis Ngannou. Not only the UFC heavyweight champion, Teddy, but as you know, one of the greatest backstories I've ever heard. When you hear Francis tell his story in great detail, like longer than what we could ever do on a podcast, I had the great privilege of listening to him tell Rob and I this story one time in person, and it took a long time to tell the little details of how he got from Cameroon and across the Mediterranean into Spain. It's unbelievable. So he's got the fight coming up with Cyril Gane, but in the background, we've also got him and Tyson Fury going back and forth on social media. Tyson Fury telling Francis that he'll fight him with UFC gloves in a boxing match. I mean, obviously, he's not going to fight him in an MMA fight. Francis is probably the most dangerous man in the world in any arena when you factor in all the skill sets. But he's in tough with Cyril Gane, former sparring partner. A lot of intrigue around this match, not only because they used to be friends and sparring partners, although I don't know, I don't think Francis would say that they were necessarily friends. But, you have training partners that you don't have to be the best of buddies with, but you respect each other. They train together clearly. There's someone released Cyril's manager or trainer released some sparring footage this week. Didn't really make either one of them look good or bad. It was just literally just sparring. Like, so, in sparring, you're working on things. You're not trying to knock each other out. And I didn't think it made either one of them look good or bad. Like I said, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about it on the media.
Sometimes you are trying to knock each other out. You go back in time when I've been around, you go to Philadelphia and see some of those sparring sessions better than some fights.
I agree 100%. But in this instance,
not just Philadelphia, but they had a reputation for it.
I want to come back. I want to come back to that in a minute because I want to ask you specifically about sparring and talk to you about that. But for our purposes now, I was just making the point that they are clearly not trying to knock each other out in this footage. It's probably like 70% punching, all kickboxing basically. So anyway, with that said, we hopefully will have Francis on next Monday. Rob and I talked to his manager, Markel Martin, who we really like, and he's trying to line it up for next Monday. So hopefully we'll get to chat with Francis next Monday. But in the meantime, let's first talk about the Cyril Gane Francis fight, and then we'll come back. I want to talk to you. I have some questions about sparring and sparring etiquette, about what you should share, no matter what the point is. Like I think it's bad form to put sparring tape out unless both guys are like, yeah, go ahead, put it out. And I don't get the impression Francis was encouraging his former trainer to put this out. But like I said, we'll come back to that. What are you looking for in the fight? And yeah, let's get into it. This is going to be an intriguing matchup.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is when you're talking about the story of, you and Rob listening to Gane Francis talk about his backstory. We had him on the show, of course, and and he talked about that story. So for the fans out there that want to hear that, want to make themselves aware of that, if they're not, check it out. It's in the archives. Obviously,
and maybe Rob can put the link in the show notes so it's easy to find, because he really gets into. He tells the full story on the show, but there's just so many details. It's incredible.
He told us the story and. Listen, it's to quickly touch on it real fast. I mean, I think he's a special person because he's trying to help some of the people in where he comes from, his home country in Cameroon. He's trying to use his example and his ability now, his power now, to set up schools of training and different things to help kids over there. So I think that makes him special for me, at least. And there's a power to that, I believe. When you're helping other people, you become more powerful because you have more of a responsibility than only to yourself. So I think that he's a great example of what a champion should be when they are a champion, and what they should use their powers, part of what they should use their powers to do. But yeah, great story. He wound up homeless in France and on the streets, living on the streets in a park, and then he got into a gym to learn UFC at a late age, relatively late age for any sport, any combat sport, anything, and look what he does. He becomes champion of the world. So it's a movie.
The story, Teddy, the story of when he set up camp in Morocco to try to get across, and the time that he spent in Morocco strategizing, looking at the boats, looking at the weather, strategizing, trying to get across the Mediterranean Sea in a homemade rubber raft with like boards for oars, and it's just and a whole bunch of random people that had paid a few grand each to get access to the boat, to the smugglers, to tell them where to go, and Francis becomes the foreman. It's a wild one guy. The waves are crashing down, and the guy doesn't want to get in the boat. Francis picks up the board. He's like, "Get in the boat!" It's a gigantic guy, and the guy, people scared they're gonna drown. Waves are crashing down. You're getting in a rubber raft to head out to the ocean or to the open sea. It's a crazy story.
But it's a story of a champion, because
100%.
Those are the things we opened up the show touching on a little bit, talking about. Those are the things you can't define. Those are the things that you're born with. Those are the things that you can't coach. Those are the things that are the intangible things that make a champion. He was showing the will of a champion long before he ever learned how to fight, by taking that journey. And then he got a chance to use that will and to use that determination in a different arena, obviously in the MMA arena, in the UFC. But the genesis of that came from somewhere else. Yep. And I bet you there's a lot of people out there that don't even know what they have in them, is what I'm trying to say. You don't even know that you have the stuff of a champion in you. It's just a matter of taking it and putting it to use in the right place. So as far as this fight goes, first of all, here's my first instincts, my first thoughts that might make news. We've been making news lately. We had Dana White on, made a little bit of news there, right?
He called, what did he do? He issued a challenge to some kid, up-and-comer, Jake Paul. I don't know if you heard of him.
Yeah, I heard of him.
Literally picked up. New York Post had a story about it. Yeah.
He's got a big following. He makes a lot of money. And he's working hard at learning boxing. But
Sports Illustrated Boxer of the Year, Teddy.
So that came out.
He is.
Really?
He won that. Yes, 100%. Sports Illustrated Boxer of the Year.
Yeah. Sports Illustrated is a little different than it used to be, huh? It's not.
I was surprised they were still around.
I remember when Ali was on the cover and Tyson was on the cover, and now you got Jake Paul on the cover. Who knew?
I don't know if he's on the cover, but he was Boxer of the Year.
No, I mean Boxer of the Year. But
do you remember those things? How iconic those covers were? I think about Tyson, Kid Dynamite. I think about Gretzky when they had him on there, the great one.
So true.
So many good ones.
Listen, he broke that, and then of course we had our friend Poirier, Dustin on the show, and he broke quite a story too about his potential quick next opponent. When I say quick, they'd have to put it together fast. We don't know if it's going to happen, but with Nate Diaz, of course, one of the most popular fighters. Dustin is up there too, but he's got one of the biggest followings anybody has, Nate Diaz.
Yeah, real quick on that one, Teddy. Dustin came on and he basically said, look, the UFC offered me a fight. We guessed that it was Nate, and Dustin just shockingly confirmed. He said, yeah, that's who it is. So I talked to Dustin this morning. I just said, hey, any development on the fight? He said, no, nothing back. But I think what Nate Diaz did either, because don't forget, it's going to be a short notice fight for Nate as well. It's not like he's in camp and conspiring with the UFC to pick off someone. So I think that either Nate is doing one of two things. Either he doesn't want the fight on as short a notice as they were offering him. I think it's pretty well understood that it would either be the January 22nd card or the February 12th card. That he said that I think it's either too short a notice for Nate, or he's trying to squeeze the UFC for more money because thinking, oh, if they want me to fight, maybe I've got some leverage here. But Dustin said, no, I've accepted the fight. The ball's in Nate's court. He can either take it or not. What his rationale is, because he tweeted out that Nate sent a tweet saying, I spoke to the UFC, Dustin. They don't want to pay for you. They don't think you're any good. We already know they've offered him the fight. So, if that's posturing to get more money, but Dustin has been, he didn't say anything back, so which leads me to believe that it's a leverage, it's a negotiation tactic by Nate, because Dustin didn't respond with anything. He knows what the truth is. So he was like, if that's what you want to tell yourself, or tell the fans, be my guest. But we know what the deal is.
Either way, stuff has been leaking out on our show.
That's why the voice of MMA is Teddy Atlas.
Well, listen,
I don't know if
this is leaking anything else, but I just got a feeling, because it's no secret that there's been some arguing between Dana White and Ngannou's people, back and forth stuff. And this is a tough fight for both guys. It's a very intriguing fight for me. It really is. Yeah. But I'm not so sure it's going to happen. That's my crazy news. I'm just not so sure it's going to happen. I mean, obviously, you don't take anything to the bank. I'm the first to say that. I don't have any special information. It's just me being in the game. And of course, this is the MMA, but still in the combat game, in the fight game, in the business of it. Understanding when there's smoke, there's fire. You used that term earlier. And sometimes the fire can be that there's more problems behind the scenes with the making of a fight than you realize, but you hear a little disgruntlement, you hear this back and forth, you hear this stuff going, bickering. It means something. What does it mean? You find out later, nothing or something. I'm saying that I don't know until they're in the ring or in the cage if that fight's going to happen, but I'm going to break it down, because it's a hell of an interesting fight, because for me, you have Ngannou, who has something you can't coach. The guys in basketball, the great coaches, they would always say, and that became a cliche too, where you can't teach size, right? You can't coach size. You can't, and so you can't coach, you can't teach size. And Ngannou has size and just pure strength. I always say that punches are born, they're not made. You're born with the power, you're not born with the power. You can improve the power with technique and timing and stuff like that, and confidence. And yeah. But to be that kind of puncher, the special kind of punches that we're talking about with Thor's hammer in their gloves. No, you're born or you're not born, like Tyson. And so Ngannou's a huge guy. He the size, the power, stuff you can't coach, stuff you can't teach necessarily, but he's got that. But it doesn't mean, see, I'll put a little adjustment on that saying. It doesn't mean that you can't teach somebody how to use their size better, how to use their power better. And I think that that's the case with Francis. He's been in the process the last 3 years, since his last loss to Stipe, who's probably the greatest heavyweight champion of all time in the UFC. And that's still open now. Gane and Ngannou are going to have something to say about that statement and about that argument before their careers are done. There's no doubt about it. But up to this point, Miocic, I think, is probably, most people would agree, was the greatest heavyweight champion. And, of course, he had beaten Ngannou the first time, and then Ngannou knocked him out in the rematch to win the heavyweight title in the UFC. And Ngannou, over the last 3 or so years, he's still a work in progress. He's this big, strong guy, and he's getting better. He's learning the other things that you can learn, that you do have to be taught, technique, fundamentals, and he's getting better. And the interesting thing is his opponent, the interim champion, Gane, he's developed like a smaller guy, but he's big. He's one of those rarities that has the size, has power, maybe not to the level that Ngannou has, but he has size, he has those things that you either have them or you don't have them. But he also has the other things, the technique, the development, the guile, if you will, just the good fundamentals and sophistication that usually you connect with smaller guys. Like you see the smaller guy has all that. In some ways, he reminds me a little bit of Tyson Fury. Fury's this giant, huge mammoth of a man, and usually you don't see the agility connected to that and the sophistication of style and technique connected to that as you do with Fury. That's what makes him so novel, so unique, so special, that he has the combination. And I see that with Gane, that, again, that he's more developed than you usually see with a big guy like this. And he's got the skill sets and the development of a smaller guy, and he's a big guy with, I've said this before, and I use this term to explain it. He's like Goliath with David's brain. David and Goliath, of course, the mythical story, the Bible story. But he's got, that's what I see. He's got Goliath's body with David's brain, where he's a huge guy, but he fights like a little guy. He's got the instincts of a little guy. He's got the characteristics of he's a heavyweight. He's in a heavyweight's body with the mind of a lightweight. A guy that's going to trick you, a guy who's going to make you miss, a guy who's going to outbox you. You don't usually see that with a guy this big. And to me, that, I'm not saying it makes him an enigma, but it makes him different. And I'm really curious to see Gane with Ngannou, because Ngannou, with all his size and strength, he's going to have to be the best he's ever been in the other departments of technique and sophistication that he's ever been in order to use that strength. I often talk about it. It's one thing to have the size, have the power, but it's another thing to be able to get it to the target, to have that delivery system. He's going to need that. And Ngannou's going to need that delivery system, that ability to take this obviously great special power, and be able to make it effective against a guy like Gane. So that's I made some notes here. Gane is well-rounded. He can go on the mat. Obviously, striking on the mat, he switches stance, lefty and righty. He does it all offensively, and he mixes in a high level of defensive awareness. That makes him special too. How often do you see these big guys that are elusive? Not too often. He's athletic. He has the fundamentals, great timing. I would call him cautiously aggressive. He wants to be the boss, but in a smart way, not just in a rampaging way, coming in, just knocking doors down because he's so big. As I said, Ngannou, pure power, strength. He's been developing. Has he developed enough? Everything that I just finished saying about Ngannou. That's big, strong guy that's been improving. He's going to need every bit of that improvement when it comes to this fight. Again, a very, very intriguing fight for me. I think of another fight. When I think of this fight, it's going to kind of blow you away. It's going to shock you. But I think of Buster Douglas when I think of Gane when he fought Tyson. Because Tyson, obviously with his power and everything else, he had quickness, and athleticism. And then Ngannou has all of that. What an athletic guy. He's huge and he throws kicks to the head. He's amazing. He's amazing. But Gane has his things too. And the Buster Douglas that night against Tyson had beaten plenty of big guys, had faced plenty of big guys, but not big guys that were so developed technically, fundamentally, that knew how to fight in the dimensions that Douglas. And that's one thing people probably don't give Douglas enough credit, because after that night he got his first defense, he got knocked out by Holyfield. He was never as good as he was that night. But that night you had a big, massive man, Douglas, big heavyweight, naturally big heavyweight, 235 pounds, whatever he was, 6'4", whatever, 6'5", somewhere in that area. But you had this big heavyweight that knew how to fight, that was as fundamentally sound as some lightweights, welterweights, middleweights. And for me, that's what Francis is facing. He's facing his version in the heavyweight division of Buster Douglas. So it's going to be a very, obviously we'll be pulling for Francis. Not that you're supposed to take sides, but you're allowed to. You're allowed to. Ngannou, I'm sure he's a special person, but we know Ngannou, Gane, I'm sure that he's special. If we got to know him to the extent we've been able to know Ngannou, Francis, but we don't know him to that extent. I don't know him to that extent. I just know how he fights, and it's damn good. It's damn good. And but I know Ngannou, as I said, as a human being, and obviously we'll be rooting for him. But I think it's a very interesting fight. So interesting it might not happen.
One of the things, yeah, I know what you mean. One of the things that's interesting here, and a lot of people might not realize this, and it's hard to, Dana is obviously our friend. He came on the show, gave us a huge soundbite with the Jake Paul challenge, and Markel Martin, Francis' manager, is also our friend. But look, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that there's this clear conflict of interest in that Markel is an agent at CAA. If they have one rival, if this was a fight game, their main combatant would be WME, who owns the UFC. So you can see that right there, there's a very it's a very touchy situation. But for Francis and someone like Valentina Shevchenko, they're with CAA, and then WME has to negotiate with CAA to get their talent to fight on their card. And, you would go to CAA because you think you have opportunities in film and other forms of entertainment, which I think is, Valentina's coming off. She was just in some huge movie. I figure like a major blockbuster she's in. And I think that the goal would be to see Francis expand his, his resume outside of the octagon. So I get why there's that built-in tension, but I just feel bad that Markel Martin is kind of taking all the shrapnel as being like the antagonist here, and we know those guys personally.
Now listen, I'll put it in simple terms. He's being an agent. He's looking out for his guy. That's all.
Yep. Yeah.
He's being a manager. He's doing his job. Sometimes being an agent, guess what? You can't be friends with everybody. And people on the other side. Sometimes, you try to have an amiable, obviously, relationship situation. But if you're doing your job for that guy, sometimes that means going to bat for him in certain areas that someone on the other side might not like so much. It's negotiation. It's called business. And we forget this sport is a business. We forget that sometimes. It's a big business. So big, very big. And talking about very big is the opportunity to have a guy as big as Ngannou that gets your imagination going, and well-spoken and great story, be able to fight almost the mythical, the question that's always out there: who's better, the MMA guy, the boxer? Who's the baddest man on the planet? So you have an opportunity that doesn't come along too often with Ngannou, with everything involved, the way he looks, his size, the way he represents himself, the backstory, his power, and could fight Fury for the heavyweight championship of the world. I mean, people at first say, what's the chance of that happening? I was on an MMA show the other day, Ken. I forget what show it was. And they asked me to please come on. I came on, and they said, what do you think it's the likelihood of that fight happening, or the possibility? I said, very good. They said, really? Yeah. Why? Money. Where are you going to get that kind of money? You got to situate. Forget about competitiveness, athleticism. Who's better, the boxer, the MMA? Forget all that. When you can get and tap into the people's imagination, like Jake Paul has, to his credit. When you can tap into that, to the imagination of people, to give them a reason to lay their money out, to come out and see something that interests them, that there's a mystique to, a mystery to, that they want to find the answer to. When you got that, you got the chance to make money bigger than what you normally could make inside your professional realm. They could make bigger money than you normally would make in any MMA, and you even could normally make in boxing. When you talking about, because then it becomes, it's kind of like the trainer for Apollo Creed in the Rocky movie said, damn it, this is like a monster movie. This is like Godzilla versus, whoever.
King Kong.
This is becoming, this is, Mothra, whoever. But this is becoming like some kind of, I remember the trainer for Apollo Creed, I didn't get, Rob will find it for me, he's my man, but he said something like, it's like a damn monster film or movie, and that's what this would be like. You're taking Ngannou, you're taking Tyson Fury, both have great stories, right? Who's the baddest man on the planet? It's a monster movie, and you can't make a monster movie inside the realm of your sport. You have to cross over to make a monster movie. So now you have a chance to cross over from MMA, UFC to boxing. And most people think the baddest man on the planet, the guy who really put that term out, was Mike Tyson. The baddest man on the planet is a boxer. Now what do? Now you could go and you could promote it as the time to find out who's really the baddest man on the planet. Godzilla meets, whoever. And
that was Duke Evers, by the way, the trainer for Apollo Creed. Thanks to Rob.
I loved him.
Duke Evers.
I loved him. Loved him. He, when spit came out of his mouth when they were in the corner and he was standing inside too long with club line. Yeah! He was scared. Move! Get out of the corner! Don't stay in that corner! And then when they were promoting the first Rocky movie, and the promoter and Apollo Creed were going over, how they're going to promote it, how they're going to make the posters, everything else. And then the trainer says he's watching a video of Rocky, of Balboa, hitting the meat in the butcher shop. Remember? Hitting the ribs, breaking the ribs, blood all over his hand wraps, breaking the ribs. And the trainer's being a trainer. I would have been doing the same thing. They're all talking about promotion. He's sitting there watching this video and he goes, Apollo, I think you should watch this. I don't have time for that. This boy looks serious.
By the way, the show that you were on was Fight Nation. By the way,
all right, thank you. You guys are the best.
The UFC, the MMA show.
And and I right away I said, "Damn right, there's a good chance that fight will be made." I mean, again, how often you get, Ken, a chance to make a movie? How often do you get a chance, really, to make a monster movie? You don't get a chance to do that.
All you need to know that this is a reality is look at the heat and the pressure that's been put on to Francis. The fact that he's there, I feel bad for him. He's constantly being attacked by the brass at UFC. That's a fact. There's no this is just an observation, right? Because if he runs out the contract, he's gonna go fight Tyson Fury. And I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they both get a guarantee of north of $100 million for this fight.
That's what I'm talking about, Ken.
This is huge.
Ken.
Especially if he's the champ.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
And the agent is, if there's a possibility for that, then he would be guilty of not properly representing his client if he didn't look at that possibility.
Yeah.
It would be like criminal negligence.
Yes.
I mean, he's doing his job. And listen, Dana's doing his job.
That's
Dana
right.
Look what he did, building up UFC, selling it for $4 billion, selling it for $4 billion. I mean, and building it and surpassing boxing when it comes to ratings now on a regular basis with pay-per-view and everything else.
Every single year they make more money than the next year.
He is the model for how you build a brand. I mean, really, he's Nike in his part of the world, in the smaller part of the world, but not that small. As far as the breakdown, if the fight does happen with Gane, and Gane could get in the way of the fight we just talked about too.
Yep, that's exactly right.
What you think? That's not part of what I'm thinking about when I say that. I just have a feeling that until they get in the ring, Gane and Ngannou, you can't be 100% sure. That's all because of those things being out there and me being aware of those things. Very intriguing fight, though.
The card is really good because right before we get that, we get the flyweight champion Brandon Moreno defends his title against Deiveson Figueiredo. It'll be the third match. We've had Brandon on the show. If you're watching this and you want to hear what Brandon had to say, you can go back a couple of months and we have an excellent interview with Brandon. He spent over an hour with us. But Brandon Moreno fighting Figueiredo third time. The first time Figueiredo had the title, they got a majority draw. Razor close, obviously. They had a draw. Immediate rematch was ordered. And Brandon Moreno just beat him down, put it on him in a big way. I mean, it was shocking how one-sided it was. And, I think anytime... You know this better than anyone, but I think anytime you get a rematch with a younger guy versus an older guy and the younger guy won the first time, I can't imagine that the outcome is any different the second time or the third time around in terms of the decision. And I'm looking for big things out of Brandon Moreno in this one, and I know you have thoughts on this one. What are you looking for?
Well, listen, there's no walk in the park with the former champion, Figueiredo. No walking apart. I like Moreno to win it. I love Moreno. I love everything, his passion, his quite frankly, his personality, his way, his humanness, how humble he is, where he comes from. He's the first Mexican-born UFC champion in the history of the sport. And coming from a country where is so historic with its background with boxing champions. I mean, you talk about the tradition in Mexico of boxing champions. It's incredible. And he winds up becoming the first UFC champion and maybe taking that country into a different path now, that it's not just about boxing champions. Hey, you got to pay attention to Mr. Moreno. He's the UFC champion. But that heritage of great fighters, of champions that is there in that country of Mexico, he embodies that. What I mean by that is I can actually see and sense the pride of that Mexican champion heritage when Moreno fights. I do. I really do. I see it just exudes from him that, I mean, every fighter has pride. I understand. But I actually almost think it's to the extent of being tangible. Like I could, like I said, I could see it. I could feel it when Moreno gets in there and he gets in his stance like he's getting ready to run out of the corner, and he's like that, and he's got his focus going to his opponent. That's all there. You're aware of that he's well conditioned, he's well prepared, like all the athletes and obviously well trained and developed with his skill levels. But he's like a young kid. He's got that baby face. You know, I think they call him the baby face assassin or baby assassin. Right. But it fits. But
he also seems unflappable, doesn't he? Seems like he's always happy, even in the fight.
I think part of it is he's so humble. It's noticeable, and he's an easy guy to root for. And he's very quick. He's a good boxer. He's going to fight Figueiredo. This is the third fight, obviously. In the second fight, in the rematch, I just felt that going into that fight, Moreno was still developing. Figueiredo was a little more developed, more mature maybe. And Moreno was still developing. And when he got that draw, you know, when it was that majority draw in the first fight, and of course Figueiredo kept the title because, you know, you can't win the title on a draw. You can't take the title on a draw. I felt that Moreno was ahead going into the fifth round, and he blew the fifth round. And that's where the draw came about. But I felt that he was ahead going into the last round, and he took his foot off the gas pedal a little bit for whatever reason. Maybe he was injured. He had an arm that was swollen. He might have been a little, whatever the reason. But he took his foot off the gas pedal in the fifth round, and he learned from that. And in the next fight, in the rematch, he showed what he learned. He wasn't taking his foot off the pedal, and his confidence had grown. It's like he learned. Sometimes you got to learn. You got to lose to learn, or you got to lose to win. He didn't lose. He had a draw. But it's part of the process. It's along the same road, the same path, where all the confidence hadn't quite gotten there yet. And then after I'll use the word, I think it's fair. And he's a very humble, fair kid and a very honest kid. He'd probably be the first one to agree with me that in some ways in the first fight, he blew it because he had the fight. I mean, listen, give Figueiredo credit too. He had a great fifth round. He behaved like a champion. But Moreno let his foot off the gas pedal for whatever reason. And in his mind, that's never going to happen again. In his mind, he learned that whatever little doubts were there, little shadows. We all have shadows up in the attic where little shadows of doubt, not so sure. You hold yourself back. And then afterwards you realize, I didn't have to do that. I'm better than that. I gave him too much respect. Whatever it is that you get confidence, you learn from that loss, from that experience, from that draw. You learn that you were better than you thought you were. I'll make it real simple. You were better than you thought you were. And now he went into that rematch knowing that, and it showed. He fought that way. And now I believe his confidence is only going to go up. There's it's kind of like hot air. It only can rate, it can rise. It goes up even more. It depends. If there's a ceiling, it stops. But if there's no ceiling, it keeps going. And I don't know that there's a ceiling on a young kid like Moreno. I think it's going to keep going. And I think a guy like Figueiredo, he's already reached that ceiling where he's champion, he's terrific, very physical. I think his one advantage is he's probably more physical, pure physicality than Moreno. But Moreno is so well-rounded. Figueiredo does have that X factor, the power, the kind of like Wilder had in the heavyweight division that helped him so many times, that one-punch power to erase a lot of mistakes. Figueiredo has that. But Moreno's got a great chin, and he's shown a real capacity, a real ability to box really well, use his jab, use his legs, use the ring, use the cage if you want. He put combinations together, go to the body and the head. Figueiredo goes to the body very well too. But Moreno also can handle himself beautifully on the mat, and that's how he won the rematch. He submitted Figueiredo in the third round, I believe, my memory serves me correctly, in the rematch. And he was not only technically knew what the hell he was doing on the mat, but he was so quick. He was so quick to make a move, to jump Figueiredo, to get an advantage, to get a position. It was almost startling when I was watching it, how quick he made those moves on the floor. So I see a very well-rounded guy. I don't see any weakness in his game. And I see him only getting better because of what I took the time to explain before, where mentally, which is 75% of this game, where he realizes how good he is now. He realizes that he belongs. I don't think going in he was 100% sure he belonged. He was pretty sure he belonged, but maybe not 110% sure. Now he's 150% sure he belongs, and he more than belongs. He leads the pack. And that's confidence. That's belief. And that's important. That takes all your talent and takes it to another level. And I think Moreno's going to that next level. And I think Figueiredo has already been at the level for himself that is a top level. I don't know that there's any room to expand it for Figueiredo. And again, having said all that, he's a big puncher. He's got a physicality advantage. So he's still very dangerous. And he's a former champion. He's still very dangerous. But another thing that's a bit of a X factor is Figueiredo has trouble cutting the weight. And seeing he's a big, strong son of a gun for that weight. And you can see it. And he has trouble from everything that I hear cutting that weight. And that obviously that can play into it too. At the end of the day, I think I broke down every dimension you could have broken down for that fight. I like Moreno. I like the champion, the kid assassin, the baby assassin. I like him to keep moving forward.
The assassin baby gets it done. Before we get on to the next fight today, I just want to say that give a quick pause for a minute to give a shout out to the guys at Athletic Greens. Like I don't necessarily credit Athletic Greens with helping me get over COVID, from a scientific standpoint, but I can guarantee you that part of my overall health profile helped me get past that COVID relatively unscathed. And I personally give Athletic Greens a lot of credit. they've been with us for a long time. I say it every week, but I love this stuff. I travel with it. I take it every single day. Like when I say every day, I mean, no matter what's going on, I take Athletic Greens. It's like an insurance policy for your body's health and immunity system. It's all you need to stay on top of your immunity with 12 servings of fruits and vegetables. No need for multivitamins or whatever else you may be taking. Athletic Greens has you covered. Teddy, it tastes great. It's an easy one-step process. I mix it in with some water in a water bottle, shake it up, drink it down. Couldn't be easier. If you go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas, they'll give you 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. It's athleticgreens.com/Atlas to get the 10 free travel packs. Those travel packs are incredible value. I take them with me everywhere. Like I said, sometimes when I was running low recently, I searched through all the different backpacks and bags I used to travel, and I found like 3 or 4 extras to get me through until the new order came in. But when I tell you I take it every day, it's if I had to pick one thing that I could take every day, recovery drink, multivitamin, this, that, and the other, Athletic Greens is the one thing I'll take every day. And I know you've been taking it, Teddy, through the COVID. How's it been treating you?
Listen, it's great. It gives you energy. Honestly, it's convenient. I think that's a big part for me, that, sometimes I don't have time, or I don't take the time, to be able to eat a meal or, whatever. You have a glass of that and you feel you can get to the next round, so to speak, that you need to get to with the energy you need, and just feel some fulfillment that you need to feel as far as having something in your stomach. But it's quick, it's light, it makes you feel good. I always talk about the mental part. Yep. It gives you that energy. You feel good. You feel like you put something clean in your body, and some of it's physical, obviously, most of it, but some of it's mental too. That you feel good about that. Yep. You do. I don't always feel as good about eating a 35-ounce Porter steak. I'm just saying. I mean, after you finish that, it tastes good. Don't get me wrong, but after you finish that thing of that porterhouse steak, sometimes you don't feel that great.
You want to make sure you're getting your fruits and vegetables on top of that steak, and that's how I treat Athletic. That's how I treat Athletic Greens. Is like, if nothing else, no matter how good or bad my diet is that day, I know I got my 12 servings of fruits and vegetables. And speaking of quick and light,
I want to add one thing. It's a great product, but I'm still going to tell you, and it helps you with your running, but please stop running when there's black ice out there. Stop running when there's ice, because even Athletic Greens can't help you then. All right?
Yeah, that's true.
Please.
Fortifies my bones and keeps them strong. But speaking of quick, and you said it was quick and light, that reminds me, before we sign off for the week, I want to get your thoughts quickly. We still got another month to go, but I want to talk to you about our friend Israel Adesanya fighting the great Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, in a rematch down in Houston, Texas. I'm going to do my best to get to that fight, but I know you had some thoughts on that one, so I'm dying to hear what you think, because that first fight was very competitive.
I don't know. It was competitive in spots, and then it didn't end competitive, because in the second round,
stopped him. Yep.
Whittaker got dropped twice, and then he got dropped the final time twice with a right hand, left hook. He got counted coming in. Listen, Adesanya is a special talent. For me, Adesanya, I'm going to be very careful comparing these. Don't go crazy out there. Please, I know what the frick I'm doing, or at least I think I do, but don't go out nuts. But I think of Adesanya in the UFC, and he's still developing, he's still growing, he's still getting better. He's still expanding his reputation. But I think of him the way that I thought in boxing of guys like Ali and Roy Jones. And again, don't go crazy. I'm not saying he's Ali or he's Roy Jones. He hasn't had enough time yet. Give him more time. I get it. To earn yourself to that place, a place that you probably can never earn to compare to Ali. But he's different. He does things wrong and he makes it right. He's very athletic. He's very instinctual. He's got great sense of timing, great reflexes, great ability. He's a tremendous striker. You know, he in some ways reminds me of Anderson Silva in that kind of, and even John Jones in that kind of way. Two very special UFC champions, former champions. Oh no, yeah, former champion. I don't think Jones is still around, but he doesn't have the title, I don't believe, anymore. But guys that just are at a different level of doing things. And for me, Adesanya is that guy. He's at a different level of doing things, and he's mentally at a very high level. That's one of the things that made Jones special when he was special and Ali special, was supreme confidence, the belief they couldn't get beat. I think Adesanya has that. Not everybody has that, Ken. And he's a guy that's fun to watch. He's got a great personality, makes it interesting. You know, he obviously knows how to entertain. He knows how to promote himself. But he's the real thing when he gets in there. And the first fight with Whittaker, I always like to cover everything. In all fairness, Whittaker had been inactive for about a year and a half. He had been very sick. He'd been hospitalized. He had a staph infection in his stomach. You know, he was seriously sick. And I'm not making excuses. He don't need me. He was a champion. He was the champion. Here comes the... Hold on, my fax machine. Okay. Yes, I have a fax machine. And yes, it works. And yes, I'm a caveman. Now, getting back to Adesanya, to Whittaker, in that first fight, he'd been sick. Obviously, he got himself in shape, you know, got past that. And it was his first fight after being sick. His first fight back was to defend his title against Adesanya, who had become the interim champion during the vacancy of Whittaker. You know, while he wasn't around, that's what happens. That's the process. They made him the interim champion, Adesanya. Now he fights for the title. He wins it. He knocks him out. He knocks Whittaker out in the second round. I'm just saying that this version of Whittaker now is probably better. I'm not saying he's going to win, but if I'm going to break this fight down for the people out there, I should give more the news or the information they deserve to have. And that I think is prevalent. And in handicapping it, I think it is. That the first fight, being sick all that time, very hard to be 100% mentally or physically. Now he's had 3 fights since Whittaker, since that loss to Adesanya, and he's been very impressive. Very impressive. And I'll tell you an area that he's been very impressive, taking people to the mat. You know, he's beaten some good fighters, some really good fighters. And in his last fight, he fought Gastelum, Whittaker, and he was able to, part of being able to win that fight was his ability to take Gastelum, a very strong guy, to the mat. And it's pretty much thought of being a formula that if you're going to beat Adesanya, you're probably not going to beat him standing and striking. You're going to have to take him to the mat. You know, like Blachowicz did. Now, a whole different animal. I'm the first one to say it. Blachowicz, the one loss that Adesanya has was against Blachowicz when he moved up to light heavyweight to challenge Blachowicz. Most people wouldn't have done that for middleweight. He did it because that's Adesanya. He challenges himself. He's special. And he believes he's special. And he moved up to challenge Blachowicz, very strong guy, bigger guy. And Blachowicz was able to get him to the mat. To the credit of Adesanya, he knew how to survive on the mat. That takes skill to know how to survive with a guy that good on the mat, to escape, your escapability, if you will. He was able to do that. But he lost the match to Blachowicz moving up, and then he moved back down to the weight class that he belonged at more, middleweight. But again, Whittaker's not as big as Blachowicz, I get it, but he's good at taking people to the mat. And he's shown that, and he's shown to be back in form, top form in his last 3 fights. since the last fight that he lost to Adesanya when he lost his title. So I think it's an interesting match. Obviously, I think part of his strategy is going to be exactly what I said, to try to take Adesanya to the mat, not to stand with him. And one of the things he's going to have to correct is not to reach in, because he reached in, he was looking for power shots, looking for fat shots, looking for big shots. That's a problem with a counterpuncher like Adesanya, because Adesanya did just that. He countered him. He caught him coming in with the right hand, and he finished him with the left hook, reaching in a little bit. For me, if I set up a fight plan for Whittaker, it would be, when you're standing, use your jab. It won't get you in trouble unless you jab from too close and you get countered the right hand. If you jab from the right position, the right distance, you can back up Adesanya with the jab, not put yourself in harm's way so much, not put yourself at risk by throwing big shots that could leave an opening. That's what I would do. I'd use my jab more. I'd look to get to the floor without reaching, without exposing myself, get him to the mat. I like Adesanya to win this fight. Again, I think he's special. As I just said, he's one of those. You don't compare someone a little bit to Ali and Jones, obviously, unless you think they're freaking special. But I think mentally and physically special. But I do think Whittaker will be more competitive this time, much more competitive. This time, I think it's a fight that's worth watching because of that. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see Whittaker at his best, to see him try to revenge that loss, which a guy like him, with all the pride that they have, these champions, obviously it's bothering him. Obviously it's important to him. I want to see how he reacts in there. And I want to see Adesanya challenge, because I think these special guys with special talent, like an Adesanya, they're only at their best when they're challenged. I think they get bored with mere mortals.
I know exactly what you mean. You're right. They fight down to the level of competition at times where they almost like John Jones would say, he didn't take it serious. He goofed around, just tried to beat him just on talent, not necessarily the work ethic that got him there. And the few times that he did that, it showed, according to him. And I think that some of those guys that happens. People take the...
No, I mean, 100%. That's what I'm saying. And then, listen, Adesanya is very good. He's got a great coach with Gene. He's been on our show. Tremendous gentleman, tremendous coach. He's very good at controlling range, Ken, Adesanya. With his legs. He's got great legs, too. Great hands, great legs. And he... like Jones and Ali. But anyway, he uses his legs to step out, make you reach, set traps, keep you off balance, make you miss. So and he's very fluid. There's something about watching Adesanya. There's a fluidity to him, a rhythm to him that the special ones have. And he has that. It's like
Anderson Silva.
Yeah, like Anderson. It's like watching an orchestra, a symphony where everything is just hitting on target. The horns, the flutes, the oboes. Thank you, Ken. You're
the
right.
French horn,
former conductor. The French horn. All maestro. Thank you, maestro. All the things just coming into sync at the right time. It's beautiful. You don't have to be, a guy that listens to Beethoven to appreciate it. You hear it, you say, "Wow, that is smooth. That is perfect." And
like a great Yo-Yo Ma solo.
There it is, maestro.
Teddy, before I get your prediction on who wins that fight, one of the things you talk about all the time is that boxing and UFC can be 80-90% mental at times. And I just want to take a quick minute to give a shout out to one of our newer sponsors, BetterHelp. Happy to say that the podcast today is being sponsored by BetterHelp. If you're struggling with your mood, Teddy, or there's something mentally that's keeping you from achieving your goals, Be sure to check out BetterHelp to improve your mental game. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Again, it's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's not hocus pocus. This is professional therapy done securely and online in the privacy of your own home. Once you're set up with BetterHelp, you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule secure weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room like you would with traditional therapy. BetterHelp, that's help, H-E-L-P, wants you to start living a happier life today. Check them out at betterhelp.com/Atlas to get 10% off your first month. Join the over 2 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Atlas for 10% off your first month. Teddy, I love this product. I've been using it for the last few weeks, and listen, people discount mental health a lot of the times, especially as athletes. You know, we're like, hey, let's just suffer physically. But if the mental component's not there, to your point, it could be up to 80% of the game. If you're not hitting on all cylinders, including your mental health, you're selling yourself short and you're doing yourself a disservice and the people around you, quite frankly, because when you're not happy, it reflects on everyone, and everyone is subjected to your moodiness. I can only speak for myself when I say that I know when I'm not at my best, it makes everyone else around me not as happy as they could or should be. So please check out BetterHelp. And I know, Teddy, you're probably on the same page as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I would guess, it's first of all, it's not important. It's beyond important. It's the most important thing in our life is to mentally be right. There is so little known. There's a lot known about the physical well-being of a person. You know, we have specialists for that. And we've made great strides in all those areas. But the one area we haven't made enough strides is in that area of mental health. There's so little known about it, and it's so important. If you're not feeling good about yourself and right about yourself, it doesn't matter how small it might seem to somebody else. It's huge. It's huge. The smallest thing to someone else that might seem insignificant can be tragic, literally tragic to somebody, because part of the danger of it is they keep it to themselves because, as I just said, there's not a familiarity with it. It's not like you can go to a doctor and say, my wrist hurts. You know, I got congestion in my chest. You know, I got a pain in my back. You know, my foot is sore. You know, people are uncomfortable going to somebody and saying, hey, I don't feel good about myself. I feel depressed. I just don't feel right. I'm not happy. I get bad thoughts. Who wants to expose themselves to that, to someone else? Who wants to talk about that? Not too many people. And that's one of the reasons why it's such a crisis in this country, mental health. And that's one of the reasons why we do have tragedies, because people aren't comfortable talking about it and they keep it inside. And that's the most dangerous part of it, is you keep it inside. Because when you keep it inside, it's got nowhere to go except internally, and it has to come out. And when you have nowhere to let it out, no one to talk to, no answers to your questions about how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way, you got a serious problem. And sometimes a very serious problem. And I know about it very well. I've been involved with my foundation, helping people that are in those dire straits. We're helping people right now, to be honest, that are in that with my foundation. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I'll tell you, I say what I believe. I wouldn't be shocked if the people of this product reached out to us because of what they hear us talk about on the show and what other people have told them about this show. It's not just about lefts and rights. It's not just about, punching ability and elusiveness in the ring or in the cage. It's about the mental side. And we connect. I remember the first day that we had our first show. And thank God, we're so proud. We're so grateful to the people out there. We just went over 226,000 subscribers and over 41 million downloads or whatever the freak that is. But you guys know what that is. But and we're very proud. We're very grateful. But I remember the first day when you asked me the question, what do you expect out of this show, Teddy? And I said, I think life is a fight. It's been my whole life. And life itself is a battle. It's a fight. And what I want to get out of this is to be able to connect the dots through boxing with life. For the people out there, for everybody out there that are dealing with their own fight, their own private little fight, whatever it is, that they can use this show, that we can help connect those dots, bridge those gaps where, you know, from the fighting, using the fighting to connect those dots in a human way, in a real way, in a life way. And this product you're talking about does that. It helps in those areas. The most important thing in the world. You know, I always say 75% of boxing is mental. Well, 90% of life is mental.
Yep.
If you don't feel right mentally, I don't give a damn. You could look like Adonis. You could look like a statue. You could be the seemingly healthiest person in the whole freaking world. But you're not. Not if you have battles going on inside. Not if you have demons going on inside.
You're preaching to the choir, and I'll just say to people, listen to this. You know, yes, everyone is special in their own way, but at the end of the day, you have to remember, you're not unique in that you're feeling things other people haven't felt. Everyone's battling their own internal dialogue. We all have two voices in our head, like an alpha and a beta. If you're struggling with something, reach out to someone, because I promise you, you're not special. Other people have gone through the same thing. And if this show can help in any way, I mean, the amount of people that have reached out to me, just in general, and I'm always happy to try and talk to people and help people. And I know Teddy is too. And we appreciate the support you guys have given us. But on this topic of mental health, especially when it comes to fighting, it's like a macho sport. We all want to be aggressive and not seem vulnerable. But listen, take it for, I can only speak from my own experience. This is something that I've struggled with my whole life. We all want to fit in. We all want to feel accepted. It's normal to have doubts and have mental health struggles along the way. Do the right thing and take care of yourself. You have to be your own best friend. No one else is coming to help you. You got to help yourself. And if you ask for help, most likely people are going to give you help.
Quite often you're gonna feel that you're the only one. You're in a solo universe. I get it. And you think you're the only one who feels this way, who feels that down, has those doubts, feels that insignificant, feels that lonely. You're the only one. No, you're not. You're not. It's obviously the other ones, you're not aware of it. The same way as you not speaking about it, they're not speaking about it. But are you alone? No. You're not in a solo universe by any means. But you need to be able to get out what's inside and not stay trapped in that solo prison. Anyway, very important product. Very, very, very important. And something that I'm very familiar with.
Yeah, one of the things they tell you when you go through different rehab programs and recovery treatments, they tell you you're only as sick as the secrets you keep. So don't be afraid to share what's going on with you with the right people, and BetterHelp hopefully can provide that. That wasn't just a long ad read. That was just sincere, like a concern and appreciation for the fans and for everyone that's watching. Like we say it every week, but I can't stress it enough how grateful and appreciative we both are to have you guys listening and watching and sharing it. Like, we appreciate everything, honestly. It's been one of the greatest things in my life to have this outlet with Teddy and to be able to talk to all the beautiful people that have corresponded with us. So thank you to everyone for being with us. Teddy, thank you again for allowing me to be on this journey with you, and appreciate all the thoughts on these upcoming fights this week.
Hey, it's a pleasure being with you, and I enjoy it. That's the most important thing, is when you're enjoying something, you're very privileged. When you're doing something that's not work, it's something that is a pleasure. You are very fortunate. You are gifted to have that, and we have that with each other and with Rob, and we we're able to go and speak to the people every week, to go out there and speak to people and talk to people and give them our opinions, our thoughts, and then hear their thoughts back, even though sometimes I'm not thrilled with all of that. But you know what? God bless you all. You know, everybody is important to us. And just thank you. Thank you guys for caring enough. I'll leave you with this. You know, sometimes I hear about, I don't watch the internet stuff, so I hear from you. You read every freaking thing. Unbelievable. And I don't know how you do it, but you're a better man than I.
Got to have my finger on the pulse.
To do the, yeah, I'm afraid you have your finger on another button too. To nuke some of these. Never mind, I won't go there. So
99% of the negative comments are by anonymous clowns that have too much time on their hands. If you have real constructive criticism, I'm open to it.
You don't like the truth, don't come on here. Or at least what we put out there is what we feel, and we don't hesitate. And both sides. Yeah. We don't say, oh, we got to be nice to this guy because we want him to be in favor with him. Freak that. No, we don't.
Exactly.
No, I already burnt every possible job out there. So I can get I can give to you know what.
Yeah, true story.
But yeah. But you know, like the great Ali said, we're so appreciative of this audience that we have. And if you really like us as much as we think you do, and you've shown that you do, or for whatever reason, because you want to see what the hell's going to come out of our mouth, or you want to learn something, and you want to be more up to speed on certain things, whatever, you know, then keep doing it. Get us to 1 million, baby. Get us to 1 million, and I'll stay around a little longer. Get us to 1 million, and you know, I'm kidding around, but I'm not. But at the same time, it's like the great Ali said. And we never compare ourselves to a man like that. But the theory of it is consistent, where he would always say, you know, I go into a full arena, and half the people are there because they like me. They might even love me. And half the people are there because they hate me. But the one thing that matters, they're all there. Yep. So you couple people, there's only one or two of you that might be there for the other side of what Ali was talking about. God bless you. You know what I mean? And like Ken said, you know, about these anonymous sources and stuff. You know what, and I'll leave with this. You know what? It's a bad picture to leave with, Ken, but what the hell? The most unsettling thing about some of those people, they wear baggy underwear.
With that said, we're going to leave you with that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button for us, please. It helps us a lot. And come back next Monday, and we're going to hopefully be speaking with the champ, Francis Ngannou. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.